Hello, this is Tales from the Mennonite Heritage Archives, bringing you another story about people, places, and events from Mennonite history. I'm your host, Dan Dick. Thanks for tuning in. Regular listeners may remember a previous episode about Mennonite midwife Katharina Thiessen. She practiced in Manitoba and was prosecuted in 1895 by the Manitoba College of Physicians and Surgeons because she didn't have a medical license. Today we're sharing the story of Dr. Abram B. Hiebert, who was prosecuted and fined alongside Thiessen for not having a license. Abram B. Hiebert was a Mennonite lay doctor who practiced medicine by correspondence. Patients sent him letters describing their health problems, and he sent back advice and medications. The Mennonite Heritage Archives holds translations of over 60 letters that Hiebert and his family received from 1877 to 1924. Many of these letters are from family and friends, but approximately 19 letters over the span of 10 years, from 1895 to 1905, are from Hiebert's patients. Abram B. Hiebert was born in 1847 in the village of Burwaldy, which was part of the Khortytsa colony in South Imperial Russia. His uncle, Dietrich Hildebrand, was a well-known folk doctor in Burwaldy. He was referred to as a Trachmioka in Low German, or bone setter. Dietrich Hildebrand trained his son Gerhard as a bone setter, and Gerhard took over Dietrich's practice after his death in 1902. It's likely that Dietrich also taught a few things to his nephew Abraham Hiebert. In 1869, Hiebert married Sarah Lowen, and in 1875 they left Russia with their 2 children. After landing in Quebec, Hiebert and his family went on to the United States and settled on the Maple River in North Dakota. They lived there for a few years, but sold their land around 1880 and moved to Manitoba. They stayed for a few years in the village of Schanzenfeld, just south of Winkler, and then settled a little farther south in Rosenthal around 1885. It's not clear if Hiebert treated patients while living in North Dakota. The earliest patient letter is dated 1895, after Hiebert and his family had been in Manitoba for over a decade. Some of Hiebert's patients wrote to him from nearby towns like Hochfeld and Gretna, only a few kilometers away from Rosenthal. For some people, getting Hiebert's advice and treatment by mail was a more accessible option than traveling a few kilometers. In March of 1895, Johann and Katharina Rempel wrote to Hiebert from the Gretna area because the roads were too bad for them to come to Hiebert in person, as they indicate they had done before. Others wrote to Hiebert from as far away as Rosthern, Saskatchewan. Many writers seem to have had some prior acquaintance with Hiebert, although a few indicate that they heard about him through word of mouth. Although the MHA holds only letters that Hiebert received, and not his replies, we can get an idea of his treatment process through letters from his patients. The process would go something like this. A patient would write to Hiebert describing their health problem. Some letters are quite long, describing the ailment in detail, asking for Hiebert's diagnosis for his opinion on remedies the patient had already tried. Some letters are quite long, describing the ailment in detail, asking for Hiebert's diagnosis or for his opinion on remedies the patient had already tried. Sometimes they had already received a diagnosis and wanted Hiebert to confirm that it was correct. Other letters are only a few sentences, requesting that Hiebert simply send along a particular medicine. Hiebert would then send the patient instructions for treating the issue, often along with some type of medication. By return mail, the patient would send Hiebert payment for the medicine and service. Hiebert also saw patients in person. He performed house calls and received patients at his home. He may have even had some space for patients to stay with him. In a letter sent from Frobisher, Saskatchewan, dated April 2, 1904, a Jacob Elias hoped to stay with Hiebert. Elias writes, "Dear Dr. Hiebert, I am sure you have not forgotten that I was sick last fall, and that for a short time I was your patient, but that I left your care. At present I am still sick, So I come to you with a request. Would you once again become my doctor? Would you consider taking me into your home so that I would be under your direct observation? I would obviously pay you for your services. My illness, as you may remember, is eczema. As soon as you accept me, I will travel to your home. It's not clear from the letter whether Jacob Elias had stayed at Hiebert's home previously, and we don't know what Hiebert's response to this request was. Besides some possible training by his uncle, the bone setter Dietrich Hildebrand, Hiebert had very little in the way of formal medical education or training. He did travel to Cincinnati, Ohio around 1894 to receive some further medical training. It's possible this was the same training midwife Katharina Thiessen received when she traveled to Cincinnati around the same time. After the Cincinnati training, Hiebert received a letter from Dr. L. H. Grettigny there, dated February 12, 1895. Grettigny was likely Hiebert's instructor. The letter states that Hiebert had completed a course on the treatment of cancer, scrofula, also known as swollen lymph nodes, skin diseases, and rheumatism, and that he was now qualified to treat those conditions. But it may be best to take this letter with a grain of salt. Dr. Lavoisier H. Grettigny does seem to have a medical degree and was a surgeon for the Union Army during the American Civil War. After the Civil War, he set up practice as a physician in Cincinnati. But in the 1880s and 1890s, Grettigny ran advertisements in Cincinnati newspapers, claiming that he could cure cancer tumors, quote, without the knife, unquote. That is, without surgery. This raises some questions about Grettigny's trustworthiness as a doctor. He does not seem to have offered any significant contributions to the field of cancer treatment. Grettigny was likely one of the many doctors at the time peddling miracle cures for diseases like cancer, and one has to wonder how good any training provided by Grettigny may have been. It's possible that Grettigny's miracle cure for cancer was using poultices. This was, apparently, Abram Hiebert's specialty, and it's plausible that Hiebert would have learned this method from Grettigny. A poultice is a topical treatment used to help issues like swelling, irritation, or aches and pains. Although we can't know for sure, it may have been Dr. Grettigny's no-knife cancer cure. Regardless of where Hiebert learned this treatment, he likely had some success treating patients with poultices, if that was his specialty. It's also possible that many of the patients Hiebert successfully treated for cancer with this method did not actually have cancer. Despite this, Hiebert seems to have gained a reputation for being able to treat cancer, even without seeing the patient. In a letter from Rosthern, Saskatchewan, dated November 8, 1902, an Abram H. Friesen writes, "To the Doctor A. Hiebert, I recently heard that you can treat cancer patients without them having to come to see you, so I thought we could avail ourselves of this treatment. Since spring, we have been using the services of Mrs. Johann Wiebe, who maintained that our daughter has cancer and that she could remove it without leaving a wound or a scar." Friesen goes on to describe a bump behind the ear of his 17-year-old daughter Anganitha. He tells Hiebert that Mrs. Wiebe, likely a local midwife or lay doctor herself, had prescribed, quote, cough drops, unquote, for the pain. After receiving a reply from Hiebert, Friesen sent another letter, dated November 25, 1902. Friesen writes, "We were very glad you wrote back immediately. Both your letter and ours travel slowly. Hopefully this one gets to you faster. In the meantime, we will wait impatiently for the medicine. Anganitha has quite severe headaches at present, but we don't know whether it actually has anything to do with the lump, or whether it is caused by something else. Yes, you are correct. We should have stopped seeking medical help from Mrs. Wiebe sooner. We have also had her treat our son, Cornelius, who is 15. He is somewhat improved now, perhaps naturally." Hiebert's reply clearly gained Friesen's trust. If the family promptly stopped taking any advice from Mrs. Wiebe, Friesen goes on to describe not only Anganitha's symptoms, but also various ailments experienced by his wife and their son, Cornelius, requesting Hiebert's advice for the whole family. It's difficult to say how successful Hiebert was as a lay doctor in terms of his business. Only 19 patient letters sent over a period of 10 years have survived. We don't know how many patient letters have been lost or how many patients Hiebert saw in person. But these surviving letters suggest that patients trusted Hiebert a great deal. Several letters reference previous, successful treatments and advice from Hiebert. Even patients who did not improve with Hiebert's treatments still seem to hold him in high esteem. In a letter from Winnipeg dated 1896, K. Stephan writes to tell Hiebert that no treatments from anyone, including Hiebert and numerous others, have helped his condition. Stephan describes a hard lump below his stomach, accompanied by severe weight loss and weakness. Even though Hiebert's topical treatment, possibly his poultice for cancer, did not help, Stephan still seemed to trust him over medical practitioners. Stephan writes, "I stopped taking the pills when I received the herbs from you. I'm sorry that you were unable to help me when you so badly wanted to help me, and worked so hard trying to help. Now I am going to trust in God's help, and if he does not help, I must die, because I am afraid of surgery. I am sending you $6 now, and I will send the rest for the ointment later." The source of Hiebert's medications is not clear. In 1894, he contacted a Gottfried Milbrandt in Croswell, Michigan, inquiring about whether medications could be produced locally. Milbrandt may have been a lay doctor like Hiebert, or possibly a druggist. In his reply to Hiebert, Milbrandt writes, "I received your letter intact and understand from it that you wish to know whether the medications can be produced here. It is possible to make them here if one can identify the flowers. But I receive a lot of them from Russia, Austria, and also from Germany. I can also already buy many ingredients for making medications from the large drugstore. The effectiveness of prescriptions varies. I use my prescriptions, each for a particular illness. If you desire one for a particular disease, I can forward that to you." Although Hiebert's treatments were not always successful, he clearly made enough money from his practice and from selling medications that licensed doctors in the Winkler-Morden area saw him as a threat. The Manitoba Medical Act restricted unlicensed medical practice, and the Manitoba College of Physicians and Surgeons was, at the time, heavily promoting licensed medical care to the public. Licensed doctors in the Winkler-Morden area were particularly hostile to unlicensed Mennonite midwives like Katharina Thiessen and to lay doctors like Abram Hiebert. These doctors made many complaints to the College of Physicians and Surgeons and eventually succeeded. In 1895, both Hiebert and Thiessen were fined. Hiebert, like Thiessen, continued practicing medicine after being fined. The latest dated letters from Hiebert's patients are from 1905, although he may well have continued practicing after that. He died in 1914. To learn more about the prosecution of Mennonite midwives and lay doctors by the Manitoba College of Physicians and Surgeons, you can listen to our previous episode about the midwife Katharina Thiessen, available at mharchives.ca. To listen to this episode again, go to mharchive.ca. If you have questions or comments about this program, email us at info@mharchives.ca.
I'm Archivist Conrad Stace. This program is made possible through support from Golden West Radio and listeners like you. If you want to support this program and the work of the archives, you can find out how to do that on our website at mharchives.ca and click on Support.
Thanks to the family for donating Hiebert's letters to the MHA and to Ed Falk for translating them. This episode was researched by Kaylee Dick and Conrad Stace and written by Kaylee Dick. Graham Unruh keeps the webpage up to date. Join me next time to hear about an incredible 1,700-kilometer journey of Mennonites from Imperial Russia to Central Asia as they wandered for 4 years in search of a permanent home. I'm your host, Dan Dick. Tales from the Mennonite Heritage Archives will be back again with more stories about people, places, and events from Mennonite history. Thanks for listening.